Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'd like to give you my long-term review of these Walmart brand LED rock lights. So about a year and 3 months ago I bought my first set of these to put in the trunk of my Grand Marquis. And the reason why is because for that huge trunk all they give us is this silly little light fixture with this single festoon bulb. That's what that little bulb looks like. And it works, but it just really doesn't cut the mustard. So I knew I was going to have to look into getting some type of lighting system back there. And I watched a ton of videos, and I looked at the strip lighting first. And it looked nice because it would give a very even distribution and a very small footprint. But I found these at my local Walmart and gave them a shot, and they seem to be working out pretty good so far. So this is what they look like in the box. They've got them advertised on a Jeep here, and where they stick them is in the wheel well shining on the tire, and that's pretty neat. So that's the brand. It's called LED Truck Tuff series. And it comes with 4 light pods, and each light pod has 10 feet of wire on it. And the nice thing about this kit is they include all of the nuts and bolts and hardware to get this thing installed. And another thing I want to tell you about this is they're waterproof, dustproof, and shockproof. So they do really well in a high heat, high vibration environment. Now, I also did look at the ones on Amazon. They were a few dollars cheaper, but I'll tell you why I chose these. These ones on Amazon, here's a kit, a 4-pod kit, and this is only $25, and these ones here are about $28. And on the Amazon kit, it uses 3 separate LED chips inside each pod. And based on my experience, it's always the case that one of these chips will fail, and then you'll be left with 2 that work. And for me, it's just a little annoying. And so this design they've got here is, I believe it's called a COB chip, and there's just one single lighting element. So eventually when it does fail, or if it does fail, I'll know it's out, and I'll be able to take corrective action to get it fixed. So the first thing I'd like to tell you about is where I installed them on my car, and how I installed them, and how I wired them, and then how I turn them on and off. So let me take you over to the car now and show you where I put them. So the first place I put them was back here in my trunk, and at first I was going to put them on the bottom side of the trunk lid up here on top, and I did a test fitting. I put all 4 up on the trunk lid, and it didn't give me an even distribution of light. It didn't get down here on the sides. So what I did is I just put 2 up on the trunk lid, and then I put 1 underneath this little lip, and I put another one underneath this little lip. Let me show you what that looks like. So here's one here. That's what it looks like. I've got it mounted with 2 screws on each side. And in order to, you don't see any wires on here because I had to drill a 3rd wire to run the wire through this little sheet metal and snake it through to connect it to all the other wires. And here's the other one. Here's the left side one. And same thing, I had to drill 3 small holes, 2 for the screws and 1 for the wire. And you can actually see the wires here. I've got them tucked in and tied off to the factory loom. And then the third one I've got over here, and the fourth one I've got underneath over here. So those are the four for the trunk. Now let me show you the four I've got under the hood. So after I installed the ones in the trunk, it was about that time I was changing the filter and fluid on my transmission, and I was out on a test drive to make sure the fluid was correct. And so I pulled over at a gas station at the island, and they have those things that are pretty well lit, and even with all that light I still couldn't see very well where my dipstick was and the fluid level on the stick. So I knew I wanted to get some light underneath the hood. So you can see I've got one of them right there. I've got one of them right there. I've got one of them right there. And one of them right there. Let me give you a better look. So there's that one right there. It's mounted to that piece of sheet metal that holds on the noise and vibration mat for the hood. And then there's the other one, and there's the other one. Okay, so now that you know where they're located, let me turn off all the lights in the garage, and I'll turn them on and show you what they look like. Okay, so all the lights are off, and so I'm going to turn them on now. Oh, I got to close the trunk. Okay, here you go. Okay, so of course that's the ones under the hood, and you can see I opened the trunk, and so the trunk light came on. Let me show you the under the hood first. So there you go. There's the two back there, and then I've got two up here, one there, one there. And you can see it does a pretty good job of evenly distributing the light almost everywhere in the engine. So if you want to check your oil or check your transmission fluid back here, you can, or pretty much top off any fluid like your power steering fluid or your engine oil or your radiator coolant or even your brake fluid. You can pretty much see what you're doing in here in a completely dark situation. Alright, let me show you the trunk now. Okay, so this is what it'll look like in your trunk, and I'm really a fan of this setup because these two up on the trunk lid, when the trunk lid is raised, it really doesn't blind you in your eye because they're looking straight down, and you're a little bit protected by the lip of this trunk hatch. And now you can really see, you can see the hot spot of where this one is mounted underneath the lip over here. And you can see the hot spot of this fourth one over here underneath this lip. So it really does a good job of giving you even distribution of all the lighting. And let me give you a shot of the two under the trunk lid. Okay, so now that I've showed you what they look like, let me tell you how I wired them up and how I turn them on and off. Okay, so usually the case whenever you add auxiliary lighting to your vehicle, you're going to be running, or you should be running, a separate circuit. You know, installing a new fuse, maybe installing a relay, and all new wiring. And I really didn't want to do any of that because I'm cheap and I'm lazy. So what I did is I tested how much electricity this little bulb uses, how many amps of electricity. And I tested this with my Fluke with the engine off, and this little bulb draws 1 amp of electricity. If you want to be specific, it drew 950 milliamps. And then next what I did is I hooked up all 4 of these, and I connected it with my Fluke, and these draw 1015 milliamps, which is just about 1 amp. So believe it or not, 4 of these super bright LED pods is using just about the same amount of electricity or amperage as this one single halogen incandescent bulb. So that's when I knew I wasn't going to have to run any additional fusing, relays, or wiring. And that's what made this project attractive to me. Now, this is just with 4, so I knew I was going to get 8 of these. So what I did is I connected all 8 of them up and I retested it, and 8 of these light pods drew 1.8 amps. And so that's 800 milliamps more than this factory bulb, and I wasn't sure if that was going to be a problem. So what I did is I tracked down the fuse that is run, or the fuse that protects the circuit of the trunk light, and it's this fuse. This is my fuse box here, and this should be for all, pretty much all Panthers, 98 to 2011. And the fuse that controls the trunk lighting is number 18. And I looked it up in my book, and fuse number 18 is a 15 amp fuse, and it's called the lighting control module interior lighting. So that lets me know that the circuit is protected by a 15 amp fuse, and so that's going to be the threshold. You don't want to go over that. And so now that I knew 8 of these lights is only 1.8 amps, I knew this was going to work, because that's plenty of headroom. And so I wanted to take it a step further. I wanted to test the actual amperage with these lights installed in the vehicle, and I found a really good video by a humble mechanic, and it's a video on how to test parasitic draw. And it was so easy. All you do is you test the voltage drop at this fuse 18, and then you can look at it, you convert it with a chart, and it will tell you how much electricity is actually flowing through that circuit, so you know. And so I did that, and the total amperage flowing through this circuit with all of these lights, and I even turned on my interior lights, you know, the dome lights and all that, and it was only 3 amps. And so that gave me confidence to run this setup without any problems, because that's plenty of headroom. Only 3 amps of current on a 15 amp fuse, you shouldn't have any problems. Okay, so let me show you how I wired these up. In order to get the 4 lights in the trunk, you're not going to need anything. You're not going to need any additional wiring, because like I said, each one of these pods comes with 10 feet of wire, and I just ran all four pods back to this starting point of the factory lighting fixture. Now, under the hood, it was a different story, because I could only get so far. The wires would only go so far, and I've got these. So I used some leftover speaker wire, and this is pretty cheap stuff. This is only 16 gauge, and I used about a 10 feet strand in order to get it to the back of the trunk. And then I also had to get a piece of flex loom tubing. This is that flexible tubing that the manufacturers, they run wire in to protect it from getting chafing or cut or damaged. And I'll tell you why I had to use this stuff. I'm going to have to go around on the other side. Okay, so when I decided I was going to put lights under the hood, I was faced with a challenge. You know, how do I want to turn these things on and off? And I can remember back in the day, pretty much all cars had a engine light that would come on when you open the hood, and it was on either on a mercury switch or it was on like a contact switch. And again, because I'm cheap and lazy, I really didn't want to have to put one of those in. I just wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So what I did is I connected all 4 of these wires into a single wire, and you can see all the wiring is run in the trunk lid underneath this mat, and then it all comes out right here into this flex loom tube. There you go. Now you can see it much better. So it's just got a single tube from the hood down into this little dark hole here. And if you've ever run a stereo and you've run the power wire for your amplifier, you're going to find a factory hole in the firewall. And so that's what I did. I just ran it through that firewall, and then once I got it in the car, I pulled up this panel here and I ran it underneath the carpet, and then I pulled up this panel here and ran it underneath that panel and carpet, and then I ran the wire again all the way back to the trunk, and I wired it up to the factory light fixture in the trunk. So all 8 of these LED rock lights are run to that trunk light fixture. And the reason why I did that is because when I'm in that situation where I want to check my oil or whatever at the gas station, you know, my paper towels and my oil or whatever, it's going to be in the trunk, so I have to pop the trunk anyways. So that's how I turn these lights on the underhood on and off. So let me give you a shot of that again. So as you can see, they're off. And here's my little key fob remote. So all I got to do is pop the trunk and the lights will come on. And that's how it works. So another reason why I wanted to run it through the trunk circuit is because these cars, they're somewhat pretty smart. After about 5 minutes, the light control module turns off this circuit, so there's no way to kill the battery from leaving these lights on. And so that's how I added light, that's how I wired them up, and it's been like this for a year, and so far it's working out pretty good. Alright, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.